5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. Protesting has long been a part of human society and is often considered a fundamental right in democratic systems. It allows individuals and groups to express dissent, raise awareness about issues, and demand changes in policies or governance. When done peacefully and responsibly, protesting plays a crucial role in societal development and justice. It enables people to voice their concerns, especially when other means of communication have failed or have been ignored. However, while the act of protesting is acceptable and even necessary in some cases, the destruction of public property and the harassment of the general public in the name of protest is harmful and unjustifiable. A peaceful protest reflects maturity, awareness, and responsibility on the part of the citizens. It conveys the message that people are aware of their rights and are willing to stand up for them in a constructive and civilized manner. Throughout history, peaceful protests have led to significant changes in social, political, and economic structures. They have opened doors to dialogues between citizens and authorities, often resulting in progressive reforms. Such protests earn respect and sympathy from the public and the international community, thereby increasing the chances of the protesters' demands being heard and addressed. On the other hand, when protests turn violent, the entire purpose is undermined. Damaging public property such as buses, government buildings, roads, and transport systems does not benefit the cause. Instead, it creates an additional burden on society. Public property is funded by taxpayers and meant for the use of everyone, regardless of their political or social beliefs. Destroying such assets hurts ordinary people more than it affects those in power. It leads to economic losses, disruption of services, and a general sense of insecurity among citizens. In many cases, the people who suffer the most are those who had no role in the issues being protested against. For instance, when roads are blocked, emergency services such as ambulances and fire brigades face delays. When public transport is set on fire, daily wage workers, students, and the elderly are left stranded. When government offices are vandalized, it results in delays and additional costs to restore them. These actions alienate the general public from the cause of the protesters and can even shift public sympathy away from the issue. People begin to associate the protest with chaos and destruction rather than justice and reform. This weakens the moral authority of the protest and reduces its effectiveness. Harassing members of the public during a protest is equally condemnable. Whether it is through physical intimidation, verbal abuse, or obstructing people from going about their daily lives, such behavior is unacceptable. Every individual has the right to live freely, travel safely, and work without fear. When protesters cross the line and start interfering with the rights of others, they lose the ethical high ground. It becomes a form of coercion rather than persuasion. The principle of freedom of expression cannot be stretched to justify the violation of other citizens' freedoms. Moreover, violent protests often result in a heavy-handed response from law enforcement agencies. This not only escalates the situation, but also puts innocent lives at risk. Clashes between protesters and police can lead to injuries, arrests, and even deaths. It also diverts police forces from their regular duties, weakening law and order in other parts of the city or region. The resources used in controlling violent protests could be better spent on development, education, healthcare, and other essential services. In the end, the costs of such protests far outweigh any potential gains. In addition, violent protests damage the credibility of the movement. Media coverage focuses more on the violence and destruction rather than the core issues being raised. The real message is lost amid the scenes of chaos. Opponents of the movement find it easier to discredit the protesters and avoid engaging with the actual problems. They portray the protesters as unruly, irresponsible, or even dangerous, which reduces public support and weakens the chances of meaningful change. This is especially damaging when the original cause of the protest is valid and deserving of serious attention. Another major concern is the psychological impact of violent protests on the public. Children, the elderly, and people with health issues often experience trauma due to the loud noises, aggressive behavior, and general unrest associated with such events. Businesses suffer losses, students miss classes, and daily life comes to a standstill. All of this creates a sense of fear and instability in society. Instead of serving as a tool for change, the protest becomes a source of distress and disorder. This is not the hallmark of a healthy democratic practice. If one group uses violent methods and gains attention, others may be encouraged to do the same. This can lead to a cycle of unrest, where every grievance is met with aggression rather than dialogue. Society becomes more polarized and less capable of resolving conflicts peacefully. Instead of building bridges, violent protests create divisions that are hard to heal. In the long term, this weakens the social fabric and makes collective progress more difficult. Protests are meant to give voice to the voiceless and bring about justice. They should be driven by compassion, awareness, and a genuine desire to improve society. Violence and destruction do not align with these values. True protest requires patience, discipline, and a strategic approach. It involves engaging with others, building alliances, and finding common ground. It is about inspiring people, not threatening them. The most successful movements in history have been those that combined passion with restraint, courage with civility, and urgency with responsibility. Damaging public property and harassing the general public undermines the legitimacy of the protest and causes more harm than good. It leads to economic losses, public fear, legal issues, and a dilution of the core message. To create a meaningful impact, protests must remain peaceful, respectful, and focused on the issues rather than disruption. Only then can they serve as a true force for positive change in society. Stop.